wanna say money, on the best tech, value tech sense, value tech sense. Welcome to another video. This is Value Tech Sense, where I show you how to get the best tech for less. I am an audiophile, videophile, cinemaphile, home theater enthusiast, but I am also a value shopper. All right. In this video, we're going to be talking about HDR. Okay. The topic is HDR and why my 2021 Vizio P Series Quantum X is an OLED killer. All right. This is not clickbait, as I don't do those type of videos. You can ask any day one in the comment section. I do not do clickbait videos, and by the end of this video, you will know that my PQX is in fact an OLED killer, especially when it comes to HDR, and this is in the aspect of HDR. All right, I got inspired to do this video. I usually don't do videos like this, but I got inspired to do this video by the comment section, because I'm always getting comments in the comment section pertaining to OLEDs, pertaining to how I feel about OLED, and pertaining to other YouTubers. Now, one thing that I always said that I will not do is talk about other YouTubers on this channel. But when the information that some YouTubers have out there is conflicting what I'm trying to get across to the people that's asking me for help, then in this one situation, I am actually gonna mention some other content creators' content on this channel, and I would like for everything that's said in this video to be taken in context of what the video is relaying to. Okay, I do not get into all of that TV beef and all that stuff, man. We grown people. I'm a grown ass man, and all this name calling and all that, I don't get into any of that. And all of the information that I offer in this video is for constructive criticism. All right, I've been in this going on 17 years, and I love this stuff. All right, anything having to do with movies, tech, TVs, projectors, receivers, anything like that, it's the stuff that I love. And the wisdom that I have gained over the years is because I've always been open to receiving and learning more. Even after 17 years, man, or going on 17 years rather, I don't know it all. And I am open to any constructive criticism that anybody has to give me. So in order for me to effectively respond to the people in my comment section without writing a novel, and then they refer me to other YouTubers' information, y'all got to understand that everybody out here ain't on the same level with this stuff, man. So I'm not going to go back and forth with you in the comment section about somebody else's content. But what I am going to do in this video is show you why I buy what I buy and why I get the best tech for less. And a lot of that has to do with doing your research. All right. This is going to be an eye opener. All right, a big eye-opening video. So I haven't seen anybody with this take on this on YouTube as of yet. So I'm about to give you my perspective on HDR and as it pertains to this PQX and OLEDs. All right. So with that said, going forward, everything that I'm about to say in this video is for educational purposes, and leave your feelings at the door, because this ain't about exposing nobody. This is about everybody in this space, everybody that loves tech, everybody that loves TVs. We're all in the same community, man. There's no your community, my community. All right. If there's some information that I could take from somebody's video, I take it, especially if it's constructive and it's, you know, there's some research behind it. It's just not somebody just saying stuff. And there's also information out there that's misleading. And I'm going to put those in the forefront today. So with that said, man, let's jump into the video. Let's talk about HDR. All right. Now, if you're in the market for a new 4K TV and HDR is big on your list, all right, you need to know what HDR is. You need to actually know what it is. And a lot of people don't even know what it is. So I'm going to explain to you what HDR is. I'm going to show you what it is. I'm going to show you what it is not. And I'm going to show you why the 2020-2021 P-Series Quantum X is actually an OLED killer, especially when it comes to HDR. All right, so with that said, let's get into the video. Okay, so we're going to start with an article from UHD Alliance, HDR TV, what it is and why you'll want one. All right, now I'm going to skip this part. We're just going to get straight into the basics, describing to you what HDR actually is. All right. Contrast is measured by the difference between the brightest whites and darkest blacks a TV can display, as measured in candelas per square meter, known as nits. The ideal low end is completely black or 0 nits, currently only possible on OLED displays, which can turn pixels completely off. On the high end, it's a different story. Standard dynamic range TVs generally produce 300 to 500 nits, but in general, HDR TVs aim much higher. Some top-tier models can display upwards of 2,000 nits of peak brightness for HDR highlights, while at CES 2018, Sony showed off a prototype TV capable of a whopping 10,000 nits of peak brightness. In April 2016, the UHD Alliance and industry group made up of companies like Samsung, LG, Sony, Panasonic, Dolby, and many others announced the Ultra HD Premium certification for UHD Blu-ray players. This benchmark sets some baseline goals for HDR, such as the ability to display up to 1,000 nits of peak brightness and a minimum of 10-bit color. The best HDR TV models will not only meet these standards, but exceed them, with support for more than one major HDR technology. As technology moves forward, we're seeing TVs exceed those initial standards by leaps and bounds. All right. That is HDR in a nutshell. Okay. And the certification for HDR, some basic benchmark goals set for HDR is the ability to display up to 1,000 nits and a minimum of 10-bit color. All right. So when we talk about HDR, right, we talk about why you want HDR. First thing you need to understand is that your contrast on any TV, right, your contrast ratio determines how good your TV is. It is basically the basis or the foundation of picture quality. All right, the better your contrast, the better your TV. And what HDR does is it expands this contrast by even having whiter whites and darker blacks, making it an even better TV. Okay, so if you're wondering, and I get a lot of questions in the comment section about HDR even being real, it is very real. Okay, and my PQX has some of the best HDR I've ever seen. All right, and another thing about HDR and the benefits of HDR is a minimum of 10-bit color. A minimum of 10-bit color. So when we talk about 10-bit color, right, I'm just going to switch over to some images here. All right. 8-bit versus 10-bit. Now, 8-bit color has the ability to display over 16 million colors, and you can see how the color bars are broken up here. But when you get into 10-bit and HDR, all right, the HDR certification, there's a minimum of 10-bit color. Why you would want a 10-bit panel and an HDR panel is the fact that it displays over 1 billion colors. Okay? Over 16 million colors, over 1 billion colors. So one of the benefits of this is less color banding, smoother gradients, right? Because in 8-bit, when you're seeing images like this, right? And you're wondering why all of this is there, and people are making videos talking about, look at all this banding, right? But at the same time, when you're hearing that there's no benefit to HDR, this is one of the benefits of HDR, right? So if you're watching something in HDR, true HDR, and there's a minimum of 10-bit color, you're getting over 1 billion colors as opposed to over 16 million colors. So you have images like this, right, in 8-bit, where you get all this color banding. HDR seeks to eliminate that. All right. So those are the bases of HDR. Okay. Those are the bases of HDR. Wider or more expanded contrast, which is going to give you a better picture all around, and the wide color gamut, the 10-bit color. All right. So now let's hop over to ratings.com. All right, ratings.com, one of my favorite, not only YouTube channels, but websites. And I always tell you guys, I always tell y'all on the channel, you have to do your research. If you want the best for your money, you have to do your research. Now, I like Ratings YouTube videos, but their website is way better than their videos. And when you go on here, if you know how to interpret the data, you can truly see what these TVs are capable of. And in this video, I'm actually going to offer ratings.com a little bit of constructive criticism. All right, because I definitely interpret this data different than most people. And I'm going to just go ahead and show you why this Vizio P-Series Quantum X of 2021 is the best HDR TV out there, and in fact an OLED killer. So first, right, because we're talking about HDR, let's just go down here to contrast. All right, let's talk about contrast. Okay, now when we talk about contrast, and it scores a 9.0 here, okay, this is one of my first critiques. All right, 9.0. When you go to this little, this is on the website, all right, when you go to this little question mark, all right, they're going to describe what it is. All right, anything you want to know here, you can go here. They'll explain everything to you, and you can go to learn more. You can read more about each of these, but we're going to deal with contrast. We're dealing with HDR. Let's deal with contrast first. All right, one of the things that I wish they would do differently, all right, is the fact that when you go to the score components of how they score the contrast ratio, you will see that native contrast is 75% of the score. And this is contrast with local dimming turned off. All right, but contrast with local dimming turned on is actually a 9.5. And when you combine these scores, you get a 9.0 for contrast. But me, one of the main reasons I bought the 2021 P-Series Quantum X was because it had 384 local dimming zones, and I would never use the TV with those turned off. So this means absolutely nothing to me. All right, when in fact contrast with local dimming is a 9.5, but it's only 25% of the score. And I don't know anybody who's buying a TV with local dimming that would use the TV with local dimming turned off. That's what you're paying for. That's why you pay the extra money, right? That if you got the 75-inch in the PQX, it has 480 local dimming zones, right? The reason you bought it is because it has 480 dimming zones. You're not intending to use it with native contrast. I wish they would actually put the contrast ratio to display what the TV was actually capable of performing as far as contrast ratio, because this is the way that people will be using their TVs as opposed to this. People are not going to be turning their local dimming off, because one of the advantages of having a local dimming TV over an edge lit TV is having the local dimming zones, so you can have deeper blacks and whiter whites while minimizing the blooming. Okay, so that's one of my critiques. And if you go down here as we will read along, and as you see right here, to me, this TV has a 9.5 out of 10 contrast ratio, because this means absolutely nothing to me. All right. So to me, it's not a 9.0. This doesn't even matter to me. It's a 9.5. All right. And then when we go down here and we read, the Vizio P-Series Quantum X has an outstanding contrast ratio and can produce deep blacks for a fantastic dark room viewing experience. All right. Not just a bright room, dark room viewing experience. A fantastic dark room viewing experience. It has a full array local dimming feature that improves the contrast. However, it seems to process our test pattern differently than in regular content. In real scenes, blacks appear darker and whites are brighter. Using a full white and full black screen to measure the contrast with local dimming enabled, we obtained a contrast ratio of 21,660 to 1. So they were actually able to test and get a contrast ratio of 21,660 to 1 on this TV. Right? And not just for daytime viewing, but also it's fantastic for dark room viewing. Contrast. Now let's compare that to the LGCX, right? Let's just compare that to the LGCX. Here's the LGCX, right? On ratings.com, we are going to make a direct comparison. All right, let's just go to the LGCX. And as you can see here, it says the native contrast is infinite. Like all OLED TVs, the LGCX has an infinite contrast ratio since it can turn off individual pixels, resulting in perfect blacks. All right, resulting in perfect blacks. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and put this out there. Like I said, this is for educational purposes, and the constructive criticism should be taken as such. I'm just going to go ahead and let y'all know there is no such thing as infinite contrast. There is no such thing as infinite contrast. Infinite contrast is a catchphrase. You know, it's a marketing spiel, but there's no such thing as infinite contrast. If you want to talk about infinite, let's talk about infinite, okay? Infinite, limitless or endless in space, extent or size, impossible to measure or calculate. The infinite mercy of God, boundless, unbounded, unlimited, limitless, without limit. That is what infinite means. But in fact, the LGCX and all OLEDs, right? The contrast ratio can be measured. It can be measured. All you have to do is go from perfect black to its highest peak brightness in a 10% window, which is 813 nits. And there is your contrast ratio. It can be measured. See, if it was infinite contrast, it'd be infinite in both directions. If there was a such thing as infinite contrast, there wouldn't be a point in making a brighter OLED, right? A brighter OLED. This new Bravia XR Master Series A90J, redefining OLED with ultimate brightness, right? LG OLED Evo, our best OLED ever. Our best OLED ever, right? Let's talk about it. LG OLED Evo sets a new standard. The next gen OLED panel has been redesigned to include an extra layer and a stronger emissive material. These optimize the structure of the panel and refining the wavelengths of light. The result is brighter, punchier picture quality and improved clarity of content. It's not just the display that's evolved, it's your viewing experience with the emphasis on brighter. See this asterisk? So in fact, the contrast is not infinite, right? And when you go to contrast and you hit learn more. You go to learn more. You can learn how contrast is measured, right? Because it is a ratio, there is no unit for contrast. Instead, the norm is to express the number as times 1, with times being how many times brighter white is than black. For example, a 2,000,000 to 1 contrast ratio would mean that the television emits white that is 2,000,000 times brighter than its black. The higher the contrast ratio, the deeper the blacks, the better the picture will look. All right? The better the picture will look. See, all y'all OLED lovers, right? You've been duped into thinking that contrast was all about black levels, but that's only half of the equation. The other half is the brightness, the white levels, right? It's a combination of the two that gives you your contrast ratio. And when you go up here, right? Let's go up here, right? Out of 45 TVs tested on ratings.com, you will see that the OLEDs, of course, will have the top spots because of infinite contrast, but we all know that OLEDs don't get that bright. They're not even bright enough to display real HDR. They have to tone map 1,000 nits until now. That's why these TVs are redefining OLEDs. That's why it's the evolution of OLED and the best OLED ever, because of the brightness spectrum. Because up until now, you've been getting a watered down version of HDR. You've been getting a watered down version, a dumbed down version, to where these TVs don't hit 1,000 nits. So they have to tone map the peak brightness. They have to tone map it, and it can only be fully appreciated under the right lighting conditions, preferably a dimly lit room or a dark room, right? Even Vincent, right? HD TV test, professional calibrator, right? He's got all the expensive equipment, all the years of experience, recently put out a video. Fact: your OLED TV is not bright enough for HDR, and here's why. Fact: your OLED TV is not bright enough for HDR, and here's why. Because the contrast is in fact not infinite. I will link the video in the description. But back to contrast ratio, right? When we get into contrast ratio, the most important aspect of picture quality, right? What it is, brightness difference between white and black. This is the main component of picture quality. All right? When it matters, always. When it matters, always. But especially when watching dark scenes. So, out of the 45 TVs tested here, right? When we take this infinite contrast component out of it, you will see that the highest one rated here is a 9.4. A 9.4 is the highest rated contrast ratio on this Samsung Q70T. And if we go to the Q70T and we go under contrast ratio, right? Follow me on this. You will see that it does not have local dimming because it's edge lit. And though it has a high contrast ratio, a high native contrast ratio, right? My Vizio P Series Quantum X scores a 9.5 with local dimming, right? 9.5. So in fact, it has the highest contrast ratio on ratings. It has the highest contrast ratio on ratings of all the TVs, all right? Contrast with local dimming. You got 7,400 to 1, 10,000 to 1, 10,000 to 1, 61 to 1. When you get here to the Vizio P Series Quantum X of 2020, it's 14,345 to 1. Rated higher than any other TV on here for contrast ratio. The main component of picture quality, even higher than the Samsung Q90T, right? Let's go back. They even with a full black screen and a full white screen, they measured 21,660 to 1. All right. So what's the other component of HDR, right? That would be your wide color gamut. That would be your color gamut. Let's go down here to color gamut. All right. Color gamut. Wide color gamut. Go to the question mark, what it is, how many colors the TV can display when it matters. HDR content. All right, we'll just go to learn more. We'll just go to learn more, right? And as you can see here, out of all 45 TVs here, in the top 15, the top 4 TVs is the 2020-2021 Vizio collection. The M7, the M8, the P series, and the P series Quantum X. The widest color gamuts on the market. What's HDR? Dynamic range, contrast, and color gamut. And the Vizio P series Quantum X has the highest contrast ratio and one of the widest color gamuts on the market, only exceeded by its little brother and baby brother. All right. Now, when we go over to, right, let's just get out of this. All right. Because let's get back over here to the CX, and we're talking about HDR. We're talking about OLEDs and why the PQX is an OLED killer. When you go over here to HDR movies, right, and you go to HDR movies, they'll show you these components here and how they scored the TV. You'll see that the main component of HDR is contrast, but I've just shown you that this infinite contrast is a lie, right? But besides that, HDR peak brightness, you got a 7.1. Color volume, you got a 7.1. Stutter, you got a 4.8. And this auto brightness, this ABL, this automatic brightness limiter, right? This what do you call it? Burn-in alert. All right, scores a 3.7. Not only that, it has a 0 down here for HDR10 plus because it only does HDR10 in Dolby Vision, right? These are the scoring components, but this is how I interpret the data. All right, I don't just look at this. I actually go in here and interpret it all. So when I go back over here, right, to the P series Quantum X, and I go on to HDR movies, right, because we're talking about HDR. As a matter of fact, I got them both. I'll put them both on the screen. Let's just do that. That's a lot easier. Let's just put them both on the screen. All right. So here you have on the right the Vizio P series Quantum X of 2020-2021, and on the left you have the LGCX. Now just look at this and look at this. Even though the LG scores an 8.7 for HDR movies and the Vizio scores an 8.6, when you decipher the data here, it really doesn't make any sense. You got a 0 here for HDR10 plus. Wow, the Vizio, it has all of the HDR formats, right? The only thing that it has a yellow for is pre-calibrated color accuracy, but that can be alleviated with calibration. So once you get this TV calibrated, you got greens all down the board. While over here, for peak brightness, you got a 7.1. Vizio beats it with an 8.9. Color gamut, it's better. Color volume is better. The stutter is red. The ABL is red. And you have the HDR10 plus, not even there. But this TV still outscores it for HDR movies based on this 23% scoring component. Right? This right here can be alleviated, but what can you do about this? Nothing. What can you do about that? Nothing. That. You can't do anything about none of these. But you can get this TV calibrated and have greens all down the board. All down the board. So when we talk about contrast, when we talk about HDR, right, the margin between the perfect black of an OLED and how black this TV gets, right, that margin is way less than the margin of how bright this TV gets and how bright the OLED gets. The OLED gets. All right. We're talking about contrast. This TV gets 817 nits of brightness, while the P series Quantum can get over 2000 nits of brightness, over 3 times as brighter, give you a much wider contrast ratio, give you a much better HDR experience. And see, as far as HDR is concerned, right? And you got all the purists out there, right? You got all the people who want the purest picture. You know, they want the creator's intent. Okay, on OLED, you haven't been getting creator's intent because the movies are being mastered, right, at 1,000 nits, 2,000 nits, in some cases 4,000 nits. And the intention was for you to see those peak highlights at 1,000 nits. And these OLEDs, up until now, have been able to display 1,000 nits or above 1,000 nits. They've had to tone map it. So you haven't been getting creator's intent. But on the LED LCD TVs, you're able to get those peak brightnesses, right? For everybody asking me why I always lean towards the LED LCD TVs, right? Because I'm in videophile, right? I'm a cinemaphile. I want to see what those nits hit like, and it definitely hits different. All right, I've been enjoying HDR, and on this TV, I've been seeing creator's intent as far as it goes with the peak brightness. I've been amazed by the HDR highlights that a lot of y'all on OLED has been missing out on because of the black level bias. All right, everything's about black levels. Everything's about black levels. And the biggest gripe with the LED LCDs is this thing called blooming, right? And it's mostly noticed on text, right? Text. But when you're watching a movie, it's not that noticeable. When you're watching a movie, when you're actually watching real content, I usually turn the movie off when the credits start to roll. And this is my own personal opinion. You know, I think OLEDs are great, and I think they are phenomenal. But I'm not going to spend that type of money on those type of TVs. You know, if that's your thing, do your thing. This is about value. And I'm trying to show you that you can get creator's intent. You can get the highest level of HDR, right? Without breaking the bank. Let's get back into the video. And that's why these new OLEDs are such a big deal. Because you think about everything you love about OLED, right? When you do have it in the right lighting conditions, right? Everything that you love about OLED, how three-dimensional it looks, it does give you that HDR feeling when you're in the right lighting conditions. But still, it is a watered-down version of HDR. That's why these TVs are such a big deal. Because imagine all of that contrast that you get with perfect blacks, and now having an OLED that's broken the 1,000 nit threshold, right? That's why it's such a big deal. That's why this 55 inch is $3,000. While at the same time, my 2020-2021 Vizio P Series Quantum X can easily punch above 2,000 nits, right? Has the highest contrast ratio, has some of the widest color gamut ever recorded on ratings.com, not to mention full spec 2.1 HDMI with all the latest gaming features for half the price. And in my case, less than half the price. And that's why my 2020-2021 Vizio P Series Quantum X is an OLED killer. Talking about value. See, I've bought the best TVs I've done it. I've spent so much money over the years chasing the best this, the best that, throwing money at this and throwing money at that. But what I learned about going after value first, right? One thing about spending the most for the best is that the best is only the best until it's second best, right? The LGCX was the best till this G1 comes out. This will be the best till the G2 comes out. This will be the best until next year when they come out with the next best, right? What you need to do is find what's the best for your needs. And you can get some of the best quick picture quality out there without breaking the bank. And that's what I do, because I've broken the bank on chasing the best. And it's only the best for so long till the next best is the best. And then the next best. But I'm getting some of the highest picture quality out there on the market for half the price. Right? Some of the top tier models can display upwards of 2,000 nits of peak brightness. Top tier models, right? Top tier models, right? Let's talk about it. Top tier, 2,000 nits, right? The best HDR TVs will not only meet these standards, but exceed them with support for more than one major HDR technology. As my TV supports all the technologies. As technology moves forward, we're seeing TVs exceed those initial standards by leaps and bounds. So with my 2020-2021 Vizio P-Series Quantum X, I have all the bases covered for HDR, and I didn't have to break the bank for it. So that's the video. Till the next time, thanks for watching.